The story of Samson and Delilah, Judges 16. In the ancient times when Israel was ruled by judges, there lived a man named Samson, known for his extraordinary strength. Samson's birth was miraculous. His mother, who had been barren, was visited by an angel who foretold that she would have a son. This son, Samson, was to be a Nazirite from birth, dedicated to God, and as a sign of this dedication, his hair was never to be cut. As Samson grew, it became evident that God had blessed him with incredible strength. He used this strength to combat the Philistines, who were enemies of Israel and had oppressed the Israelites for many years. Samson performed many feats of strength, including killing a lion with his bare hands and slaying 1,000 Philistine men with the jawbone of a donkey. Despite his great strength and role as a judge of Israel, Samson had a weakness: his love for women, particularly Philistine women. This would eventually lead to his downfall. Samson meets Delilah. Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah, who lived in the valley of Sorek. The Philistine rulers saw an opportunity in this relationship and approached Delilah with an offer. They promised her a large sum of money, 1,100 pieces of silver from each ruler, if she could find out the secret of Samson's strength and how they could overpower him. Delilah agreed to their proposal and began to press Samson to reveal the source of his strength. On 3 occasions, Samson misled her. 1. First attempt, Samson told Delilah that if he were bound with 7 fresh bowstrings, he would become as weak as any other man. Delilah informed the Philistines, and they brought her the bowstrings. She bound Samson while he slept, but when she called out, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you," he snapped the bowstrings as easily as if they were threads. 2. Second attempt, Delilah then asked Samson again, and he told her that if he were bound with new, unused ropes, he would lose his strength. Delilah bound him with the new ropes, but again, when she called out to him, he broke the ropes as if they were nothing. 3. Third attempt, Delilah pressed Samson further, and he told her that if the 7 locks of his hair were woven into the fabric on a loom and tightened with a pin, he would become weak. Delilah did this while Samson slept, but once again he easily freed himself when she called out. The revelation of Samson's secret. Delilah, frustrated that Samson had deceived her 3 times, continued to press him daily. She pleaded, nagged, and finally wore him down. In his exhaustion, Samson told her the truth: "No razor has ever touched my head, for I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." Delilah realized that Samson had finally told her the truth. She sent word to the Philistine rulers, who returned with the silver. That night, as Samson slept on Delilah's lap, she called for a man to shave off the 7 locks of his hair. As the hair was cut, Samson's strength left him. When Delilah called out, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you," he awoke, but found that his strength was gone. The Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him to Gaza. There, they bound him in bronze shackles and forced him to grind grain in prison. Samson's final victory. While in prison, Samson's hair began to grow back. The Philistines, unaware of the significance of his hair, planned a great celebration in the temple of their god Dagon. They gathered to offer a sacrifice and to celebrate their victory over Samson, whom they considered their greatest enemy. As part of the celebration, they brought Samson out of prison to entertain them. Blind and weakened, Samson was led by a servant boy to the center of the temple, where he was placed between 2 pillars. The temple was filled with men and women, and all the rulers of the Philistines were there, along with about 3,000 people on the roof, watching and mocking Samson. In that moment, Samson prayed to God, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." He then braced himself against the 2 central pillars of the temple, placing his right hand on one and his left hand on the other. With all his might, Samson pushed against the pillars and cried out, "Let me die with the Philistines." The pillars gave way, and the entire temple collapsed, killing Samson and all the Philistines inside, including the rulers. In his death, Samson killed more Philistines than he had during his life. His family later came to retrieve his body, and he was buried in the tomb of his father Manoah. Legacy of Samson. The story of Samson and Delilah is a powerful narrative of strength and weakness, of a man chosen by God who was ultimately undone by his own desires. Yet, even in his failure, God used Samson to deliver Israel from the Philistines, fulfilling the purpose for which he was born. Despite his flaws, Samson's story is a reminder of God's ability to work through imperfect people to achieve his will. Samson kills the lion, Judges 14:5-6. Samson's encounter with the lion is a dramatic story that showcases his incredible strength, a gift from God. The story is found in Judges 14 and unfolds as follows. Samson's journey to Timnah. One day Samson went down to the town of Timnah to see a Philistine woman he had chosen to marry. As he traveled, his parents accompanied him, but at a certain point, Samson went ahead alone. It was during this part of the journey, near the vineyards of Timnah, that a young lion suddenly came roaring toward him. The attack of the lion. The lion's sudden attack was ferocious, and any ordinary person would have been terrified and likely overpowered. However, Samson was no ordinary man. Empowered by the Spirit of the Lord, Samson's strength surged within him, giving him extraordinary power. Without any weapon in his hand, Samson seized the lion and tore it apart with his bare hands, as easily as one might tear apart a young goat. Samson's silence. After killing the lion, Samson continued on his way to Timnah. Remarkably, he didn't tell his parents about the encounter. It was as if this incredible feat of strength was just another part of his extraordinary life. The story takes a turn later when Samson returns to the site of the lion's carcass and discovers a swarm of bees and honey inside the lion's body. This discovery would lead to another significant event in Samson's life, tied to a riddle he posed to the Philistines. Inclusion. Samson's slaying of the lion is a vivid demonstration of his God-given strength and a foreshadowing of his future acts of might against the Philistines. This episode highlights the beginning of Samson's journey as a deliverer of Israel, showing that with God's power, even the most fearsome challenges can be overcome. Please subscribe to our channel